It's time now to review headlines on today's newspapers with Ombudsman of This Day and Arise Media Group and This Day Newspaper Limited's Group Executive Director, Mr. Kayode Komolafe. But as we like to call him in-house, Mr. KK. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Welcome.
All right,
Pleased to be here.
We'll be kicking off with This Day, the newspaper of record.
Sunday,
Yes.
the newspaper of record. Well, this day on Sunday, the main headline there is Wike threatens PDP governors supporting Fubara, vows to instigate crises in their states. The writer says, insists he's leader of PDP in Rivers, warns Bauchi governor others against interfering in state politics, and Fubara and supporters shun Wike-backed Congress. And then the story above that, just below the masthead, is Matawale CDS service chiefs to storm Sokoto to flush out bandits in the northwest. And then the story above the masthead in this window here, you have Shetima. Tinubu's ambitious health sector reforms have attracted over $4.8 billion in potential investments. This coming when our resident doctors are on strike or threatening a strike. And the picture here is of the Kwara State Governor, Abdurrahman Abdulrazak, on the left in a handshake with Malam Yahaya Zakaria Nafiu, a native of Ilorin, whose wife gave birth to undecaplets, which is 11 children in Benin Republic. 11 in this economy.
Wow.
So, KK, which story would you like to take first?
Yeah, first.
Wike?
No. First, the front page photograph. There's a human angle to it. You know, I mean, just like Adishwa said, that in this economy, for a person to but don't forget that it's a blessing.
Yes.
Yes, a blessing. So first is congratulations, to the father of the 11 new babies.
And the mother.
And also say that in a situation like this, he deserves the solidarity of, those who are given to charity, to support him. He really needs, a lot of support. Congratulations. Now, I'm afraid, I think I'm more interested in the development stories on the front page rather than the Wike story, which actually is the lead story. So I will say that let us take, the health story on the window. The disclosure by the Vice President Kashim Shettima that the administration has been able to attract, potential investments of about $4.8 billion, and that is quite a lot. It is significant, that the issues, on the table in Nigeria today, is about combating poverty and ensuring access to universal health care, and improving the quality of health care delivery, is central, to poverty alleviation. In fact, if you want to tackle poverty, I think one clear area, one key area area that you should focus upon is the healthcare delivery system, and the debate all along has been that is, underfunded, we need resources. I think the administration is taking a right step, in trying to attract, investments in the sector. And in this regard, I think also, commend, those who are in charge, of healthcare policy. That is the minister, Professor Pate, and also the Minister of State too. That given their pedigree, given their background, it's not surprising, that you are having, this positive development, in the sector. The other thing to add is that while this is taking place, it is important, for the ministers, to also do more of policy articulation, because there is the need to, get the public, to actually understand, the dynamics of things there, and also to be able to get the support, and so that, the development process will be inclusive, because this is, so that if there are debates on the steps, being taken, it will be, an inclusive debate, So I think they are doing right, and I think the suggestion that one could just add to it is that they should do more policy articulation, because it's interesting that this has been taking place, and until this occasion, of the launch of health center, hospital, of this hospital, that it now takes the vice president to be making the disclosure, But I think that is a thing that should have been popularized, that so that maybe there are suggestions, and also to get the people who are actually the beneficiaries, to be interested in this being taken. The other story is also a development story, if you like. That is security. That is the strip under the window. It's a good thing, because the core, of everybody on government is that the government should be alert to its constitutional responsibility of ensuring the security of the citizen. Yeah. Now that we have the Minister of State for Defense, the CDS, the Chief of Defense Staff, and also the service chiefs, Muto Sokoto, I think it is quite another. Incidentally, the Minister of Defense and the CDS, they are from the Northwest, and the very, disturbing news, in terms of security that have been coming from the Northwest, of recent, will require, that kind of drastic, action being taken. But in doing so too, we must also acknowledge, and also salute, the effort, the security and defense agencies, for the gallant efforts they've made, in securing the releases, some of the people who have been held captive, and also combating it. But as it is said, in matters of insecurity in Nigeria, it's still a work in progress, and more, should be done. So I will commend them for the efforts being made, but to also let them know that the challenge is still huge. And the way, if this headline is dramatic, I think the situation in itself, requires such
that level of drama.
a drama. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, as for the Wike,
threatening the PDP governors,
vowing to instigate crisis in their states.
I think the point should be made that sort of language is less than democratic.
Yes.
Yes, it is it's the nature of democracy for people to have disputes in political parties, for people to jostle for power, for the control of party. All these are legitimate, but I don't think it's the kind of democratic culture that we should develop, saying that by a politician who incidentally, has been a two-time governor and now a minister, of the Federal Republic, to say that you will create crisis in states. So we say that creating crisis in any part of Nigeria, in any state at all, is not a democratic culture. So while it is legitimate for Wike to struggle for the control of the party, to exert its influence, that is all within his rights. But I would just say that that it is important that while doing all this, we should bear in mind that it is important to deepen the democratic culture, and that it should be reflected in the kind of statements that politicians.
I even think beyond just democracy and the integrity of our democratic institutions, instigating crisis is instigating violence. It's instigating the repercussions for crises, when crises spring up in different areas, when they spring up in states, when they spring up in insecure areas. The repercussions of that can be deadly. And we had a government that came out and said, the federal government came out and said that the end hunger protest and the end bad governance protest was sponsored. That this is a sponsored crisis. Now we have a member of that exact government threatening to instigate crisis in multiple states. Multiple states of the Federation. No, and he's not been called to order by the federal government of which he is a member.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. That we should be, that in the conduct, and the statement that politicians make, it should be in conformity, with the democratic culture. That's why I said that it is not part of democratic culture for anybody to instigate crisis, whether it is violent or not violent. But debates, politicking, quite legitimate. So I quite agree with you, Adisa.
All right, then let's quickly touch on This Day Style. On the cover of This Day Style today, we have Tokunbo George Taylor, Building a Legacy. And let's just touch on who Miss Tokunbo is. Tokunbo George Taylor is a highly accomplished individual with a strong track record in the communication field. As the founder and CEO of Scott Communications, she has shown exceptional leadership and vision in building her company into a successful and respected player in the industry. With over 30 years of experience in strategic communications, public relations, and brand development, she deeply understands the power of effective communication in driving a business success. So, congratulations, of course, to Tokunbo George Taylor, building a legacy. And yeah, she definitely, in this interview with Funke Babs Kufeji Tokunbo, speaks more about her journey into the communication industry, how she acquired the assets of one of the world's leading global communications companies, Hill Norton Strategies, and more. If you want to read more on that, you pick up This Day Style today, and you find that on page 14. What other papers do we have? So
there's the Sunday Punch, and the main story there is interesting considering our last discussion on both Minister Ali Parthe and Minister of State Honorable Tunji Alausa and the Minister of the FCT and his recent threats, Nyesom Wike, Honorable Minister Nyesom Wike, because the main story on the Sunday Punch says Tinubu may shake up cabinet as pressure mounts on ministers. And the writer says that 2/3 of ministers underperforming, and that is coming from the opposition. Now, Tinubu, I believe, has 47 ministers. I think one was suspended, but she was not removed from her position. That's Minister Betta Edu. So
that is true.
It's about 47 ministers we have. The Constitution just does allow for 36, so we do have more ministers than is required. And some are alleging that some of the ministers are underperforming. Mr. KK, do you believe that we're going to see a cabinet shake-up?
Well, the editor of Punch is entitled to a speculation, but I would rather not indulge in that, but rather to discuss the substance of the matter which you have brought up, and that is that the stage in which we are now is the stage where the focus, should be on proper, policy, conceptualization, articulation, and implementation. Because this is the stage that people should work and less of politics. And if you permit, to tie it back to the Wike's story of threatening, that what ministers should be talking about is that in their respective ministry, what do they do to contribute to development? Because the crisis we are facing, in summary, is actually the crisis of underdevelopment, in various sectors, and the purpose of a government being in place is to reverse that order, to ensure development. So, therefore, the kind of debate, the kind of statements that should be coming from ministers are those things, those things that can promote on the various options, to take, in the path, on the path, to development, So I'm saying that, that kind of the politics that should be played now is not the politics of instigating violence or, but the policy, the anti-poverty politics, how to wage war against poverty, So the war that is necessary to be fought in Nigeria today, it should be the war against poverty, not war against any political opponent, not war against any fellow party member, but how to wage war against poverty. And on that note, there is a need for some kind of elite consensus, regardless of the political affiliation, regardless of the orientation, that there has to be that kind of elite consensus that the number one problem in Nigeria today is poverty, and all wants to be on deck to combat, poverty. So that should inform the kind of statement people make. That should inform the performance, of a minister. So that every minister should be able to even do self-assessment that in his own sector, what is he doing on daily basis, to promote development, to fight poverty.
Yeah.
I think that should be the focus. Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
There is a very interesting story still on the cover of the Punch. Inside abandoned 250-bed Ogun hospital where termites and others are patients. And when you think about, the rising speeds, I mean, we have mpox that is going around. Thankfully, it's not that bad here. We've had the fight against cholera, and then also a rising spate of malaria. It's interesting to read that on page 7 that even in Ogun State there's a hospital that is actually abandoned, a 250-bed hospital that is abandoned at such a dire time. You can read more on that on page 7. On here, secret network of dispatch riders transporting hard drugs, sacrifices for customers. That's on pages 28 and 29. And flood destroys 4,167 houses and farmlands in Gombe and Yobe State. And we already touched on this morning. The rejected South African beauty, Chidinma Adesina, has been crowned Miss Universe Nigeria. And finally, the federal government treating serial kidnapping with kid gloves. Now, this is coming from a retired general. More on that on page 24. Mr. KK, I mean, we've had this incident. First, we had the incident of the 20 students that were returned, but we still have the doctors who have been protesting for the return of their colleagues, and more focused on, Dr. Ganiat Popola, who has been in captivity for 8 months. Do you believe that the federal government is still treating serial kidnapping with kid gloves, or are they doing the best that they possibly can?
No, I don't. I think it would be uncharitable to say that that the government is treating kidnappers with a kid glove. Rather, I think what would be more appropriate is to say that, just like say that, yes, successes have been recorded. Some cases of captives, being, set free, But that, as we speak, we still have a lot of Nigerians who are still in captivity, and that the challenge, is for the security and defense agencies, to do more to ensure, the freedom, of those people, So it's quite in order to see, call on government to put pressure that much, should be done, to ensure that all those who are in captivity, are set free. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had this conversation, I think, last week when, it was the two of us and I think, it was Mr. Steve, and we're talking about this back and forth about ransom payment. And remember, you had been very specific about not focusing on that, but actually the successes that were being recorded. But then it still brings us back to this conversation that we touched on yesterday on the morning show about being able to track these kidnappers who ask for these ransoms or who actually call the relatives of the family members. We all have to register our names. We all have BVNs. There's a way to track these numbers. How is it that in 2024 we're still not able to use this technology that is available to us to track them down and probably have them arrested? Do you think it's something that, again, still touching on what this retired general is saying, that we're not exploring deeply enough?
Yes, I agree with you, absolutely, that as members of the public, it is our place to call on government, that more should be done, to embrace, the technology, and the necessary tactic, and strategy, should be put in place, to ensure that kidnapping and other, forms of violent crime, should be put in place. But what we're trying to say is that, we should also be sympathetic to the security and the defense agencies, that is professionally, they cannot be discussing their operations in the public, Yes, who can make the, but as to the nitty-gritty of whether you are going to use, a SIM card in tracking method and whatever, all this, I think we should respect, the professional integrity, of those who are in charge. Yeah. And don't forget that what about, that these people are also in the arm's way, while we are talking of, people who are in captivity, victims, they themselves also fall victims, A number of soldiers have been killed, policemen, security operatives, So we should conduct the debate in such a way that we don't also expose them, to
Just take one more paper quickly.
Consideration to them too. Yeah.
Yes, I want to take this very quickly because it's on multiple papers, but if you pull up, this is the last one, Sunday Telegraph. The main story there is Tinubu dismantles vestiges of Buhari's cabal. The writer says Bichi Mohammed, last batch of ex-president's men in Aso Rock. And another writer there says appointments based on nepotism, not competence, and that's a security source. Now, the reason I need us to talk about this, but because we also have on the Punch, it says northern groups allege Tinubu's kinsmen are dominating security agencies. On the Sunday Sun, it says that northern minorities are backing restructuring. On the Sunday Tribune, we have northern minorities are calling for restructuring. Are we getting a sense of issue here in terms of appointments? Now, we have a new head of the NIA, we have a new head of the DSS.
as well.
And we're having people alleging that appointments are nepotism, not competence, and that the North is not included. So very briefly, how do you feel about these stories?
Yeah, I think it's within the prerogative of the commander-in-chief, to make his appointments, And also, we also know that the constitution, is quite clear, in terms of, the reflection of, federal characters, in making of appointment. But I think the bottom line of all this, is delivery. That is the performance. Like I'm talking of security issue now. I think what is primary is that whoever is put in charge, that the job should be performed so that Nigeria is secure, Yeah. And that is the primary thing. Then, if that is done, perhaps there will be no too much of controversy as to where the service chief, comes from or whatever. If you are secure, in your place, yeah.
Well, hopefully the Sokoto trip by Matawale and the other service chiefs would bring the results that were quite in the
I join you in wishing them well.
I wish them very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you in the studio, Mr. KK. I believe we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Pleased to be here. Yeah.
All right, then that brings us to the end of the morning show today. Thank you for watching. I am Sheiton Atigari.
Well, I'm Adeswagi Osagi, and from my entire team here in Lagos, Nigeria, enjoy the rest of your morning and, of course, the rest of your day. Goodbye.